Hey there, Father Michael here. I've always loved music. From the earliest memories I have, I've been singing music, listening to music, performing music ever since I was a tiny kid. And that's because singing in particular is for me like channeling the highest power in the universe, the highest power that there is in the universe and within myself, God the Good, as we say. There are, to be sure, certain pieces of music that touch me so deeply that I really have to concentrate if I'm performing them to do it without becoming, emotionally unregulated, without crying. In other words, certain pieces. So some examples would be like Lloyd Webber's Pie Jesu, Franck's Panis Angelicus, Puccini's Nessun Dorma, Hagenberg's O Love That Will Not Let Me Go. Oh my goodness. I still have been unable to perform that. I'm working on it, but it just touches me in the deepest places of my soul. There are also, besides those more classical hymn text type pieces of music, there are a lot of other ones, contemporary songs that are also emotional. Pet Shop Boys, Red Letter Day is one. Go West is another one. Howard Jones, big name in the 80s, early 90s, that song Everlasting Love and No One Is to Blame. And of course, Talking Heads, City of Dreams, Lana Del Rey's Summertime Sadness, Ellie Goulding's Anything Can Happen. There's just a handful of songs that just touch me in a profound way, and each of them is tied to either a significant relationship or significant events in my life, and listening to them and singing them is healing, emotionally, spiritually. There was a time, not that long ago actually, when I viewed singing strictly as a performance art. I warmed up. I've been blessed with damn near perfect pitch, which is a curse if you're listening to somebody else sing who's not on key, or if the organ or piano is slightly off. That's an unpleasant experience. But when it comes to singing, I'm like never flat or sharp, so I don't need to worry about that. But through much of my life, I have focused purely on technique over everything else. And so I made a name for myself doing that. It worked, right? But then, 25 years ago, something happened. My firstborn son was killed in an accident, and I sang his funeral. And at the conclusion of that, as I am walking out of the church behind the casket, I've talked about this several times before, I had a clear sense that I would never sing again. That everything in my life, musically, had prepared me for that one final performance, which was flawless, to be fair, but I swore I don't need to ever sing again now. Now I know why I have been singing my whole life. Well, God had other plans. And it wasn't more than a few weeks after that that people were requesting me to sing funerals of all things, which was such a difficult thing for me to do. But I did it. And so, I did in fact sing again. But that intuition after Chris's funeral was correct in the sense that my days of performing music were certainly over. It was time for something more, something with a deeper connection, a wider vocation, if you want to use an old-fashioned word, a more true and lasting sharing in and sharing of the power of music over every other consideration. And curiously, even more than before, I made an even bigger name for myself because I was in the divine flow. I saw myself, and I still do when I sing, as simply another instrument in service of the capital M music, also known as God. And as a result of that change of heart and mind, I only shared my musical talent where I myself could feel God's presence in a powerful way. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. I would turn down the offer. The prophet Zephaniah, short little book in the Hebrew Scriptures. We don't hear much from him. I think once every 3 years there's a reading during Advent. But in chapter 3 of Zephaniah, verse 17, the prophet writes, Yahweh your God is in your midst, a warrior bringing victory. God will create calm with divine love. God will rejoice over you with singing. That little verse is a reminder that God is, to be sure, always present to us. But I don't know about you, but I am not always 100% conscious of that fact. I like to think of myself as being open to the divine presence, but I'm not always as open as I need to be. Certainly, life can be a shit show. Let's just put that out there. And I'm no different from anyone else. I also get distracted by my thoughts and concerns and worries about other people and worries about myself and what's going to happen if, and all of that business. Sorrows creep into my life. Like everybody else, I have my share. Sometimes, like happened 2 nights ago, I just wake up at 3 a.m, completely unable to sleep. Those little mental wheels are grinding and turning. And in those moments, I forget a simple truth that the music, God, is always playing if I just figure out a way to quiet myself and listen more intently. Like a dog whistle. Sometimes. I don't even know if that's an actual thing, to be fair. I don't know. But I'm told that there's a thing called a dog whistle that dogs can hear but humans cannot. Sometimes that's how we are with God. God is trying to serenade us with all kinds of blessings and information and guidance, but we can't perceive it. It's not because we're, made defectively. No, it's that we are distracted by other things. The truth is so much simpler, so much easier, really, because regardless of how we feel, regardless of what we're going through, whether we are at church or on stage, at home, driving in the car with the top down, listening to Arabic techno, maybe that's just me, whether we're at work or at school, God's music is always playing, always around us and always within us. And although there are times, and there will continue to be times, when we simply do not hear it, or we're distracted by other things, that does not change the truth that the music is always playing. The music will never end. We know that God is never going to abandon us. And so while we don't always feel those great moments of connection, like when we're listening to a very emotionally rich song for us, we don't go through life on those mountain peaks of feeling total connection with the divine. Nonetheless, even when we don't feel that spiritual high, when we don't necessarily feel the nearness of God, there is still a choice to be made, and the choice is simple. Are we going to remain open, or are we going to close ourselves off? I think the better choice is to choose to be as open as possible, as attenuated as possible to the melody that is God, day by day, minute by minute. Pray with me. Loving, melodious God of our life, we come into your divine presence in this moment of connection, grateful for the melody that you have sung to our heart from the moment of our conception. Thank you for bringing us through the many difficulties and challenges that we have faced in our lives. Help us today to be a little more attentive to the music, even in the times of doubt and stress. Help us to remember that you are not going to abandon us, and that someday we will stand in your presence, completely wrapped up in the music that is you, recognizing our tiny melody line and how it all fits together according to your divine plan. Be with all those who are struggling today, and help us to be attentive enough that if we see someone struggling, help us to perhaps find a way to hum a few bars of the music that is you. Amen. God bless you today.